Long before the sacred trees whispered their secrets and the mist-covered hills bore witness to a kingdom's birth, there was Onicha Uku, a land of carved stone, royal blood, and laws as old as the sun. The people spoke with the pride of inheritance, worshipped their gods with blood and song, and feared nothing, except the prophecy. The earth had spoken. At first, it was a drought. The rivers that once danced through the farmlands dried to a mournful crawl. Then came the deaths, not of warriors in battle, but of infants in their sleep, chiefs in their sleep, and cows without wounds. The kingdom's healers blamed the winds. The priests knew better. The Oba summoned his council beneath the sacred Iroko tree, where only truth could be spoken. Among the elders was a woman with eyes clouded like storm water, Iyar, the last of the moon seers. She had not been called in 20 harvests, yet her steps were slow with power. "I have read the Kola," she said as she dropped the red halves onto the earth. "The gods have spoken in signs and shadow." The council leaned in. "The land rejects the blood of the firstborn." Silence fell like a dropped gourd. "What madness is this?" barked Chief Igba, a proud war general. "We are blessed by first sons. They carry our legacy." "The gods say otherwise," Iyar said calmly. "A child born in the sacred quarter will bring war, not peace. If he remains in this kingdom, all will fall." They called her a madwoman. They laughed. But in secret, some wept, because one child had indeed been born weeks earlier in that exact quarter. His name was Osas, and he was born with a mark across his chest that resembled a burning tree. His birth brought thunder with no rain. His mother, Ereoma, was a weaver. His father, Omodiale, a skilled carver of ancestral masks. When the news spread, people stopped buying Omodiale's masks. Ereoma was warned not to touch the stream. They became outcasts in a kingdom that once praised their hands. Then a goat was found hung by its neck on the village's sacred tree, an omen. A new priest, not Iyar, declared that the gods required cleansing, not by sacrifice but by removal. "The child must leave," he said, "and those who defend him must leave with him." The Oba, fearing the whispers and trembling dreams, agreed. A quiet exile was ordered. Those who refused would share in the curse. So it was that 13 families gathered their cloth, their seeds, their memories, and prepared to walk into the forest no one named, the one where even warriors feared to hunt. The night before their exile, Osas sat outside their compound, legs curled under him, staring at the moon. It was fuller than ever, a coin of light in a sky smeared with ash. "Mama," he whispered, "why do they hate me?" Ereoma knelt beside him. "Because they fear what they do not understand." "Am I cursed?" She looked at the mark on his chest. It pulsed faintly in the moonlight. "No, you are chosen." The morning of departure, drums did not beat. No one sang farewell songs. The gates opened without honor, and the people of Onicha Uku looked away as the 13 families walked barefoot past the shrines they once served, past the homes they built, into the green mouth of the unknown. Iyar watched them from her hut. She smiled faintly. "It begins," she said to no one. Behind the caravan, a small boy stopped for a moment, turned around, and looked at the hills of Onicha Uku. His eyes glowed like something ancient, and for a moment, the wind blew backward. Some are born into greatness. Others are exiled into it. And some, like Osas, are carved by both. The sun rose softly over the rolling hills of Onicha Uku, spilling golden light across the carved stones and thatched roofs of the village. Smoke curled lazily from cooking fires, carrying the scent of roasted yam and freshly ground pepper. Children darted between clusters of women pounding cassava, their laughter mingling with the rhythmic thump of wooden pestles. In the courtyard of a modest compound, Osas sat cross-legged on a woven mat, watching his mother weave strands of indigo-dyed cloth. Her hands moved with steady grace, the fingers twisting and folding the fibers as she hummed an old song. It was a melody about rivers and ancestors, a song meant to remind them that no matter the storms, their roots ran deep. "Osas," she called softly without looking up, "come help me tie this cloth." He smiled, scrambling to his feet and kneeling beside her. "Mama, why do you sing that song?" She paused and looked at him, her dark eyes steady and kind. "Because it tells us who we are, even when the world forgets." Osas traced the patterns in the cloth, swirling shapes like waves and leaves. "But what if the world does forget us?" His mother's smile faltered for a moment, shadowed by worry. "Then we remind the world. We never forget." Behind the compound, Osas' father, Omodiale, carefully carved a wooden mask. His hands were rough from years of work, but the designs were delicate, precise. The mask bore the face of their clan's guardian spirit, fierce eyes, a wide nose, and a mouth that seemed frozen in a silent chant. A group of men gathered nearby, talking in low voices about the recent drought that had withered their crops and silenced the rivers. The talk grew tense when the priest's warnings spread, that the land itself was angry, that the spirits were restless. In the center of the village square, the Oba and his council met beneath the towering Iroko tree, the oldest and most sacred in Onicha Uku. The air was thick with smoke and anticipation. "Too many signs, Your Majesty," said Iyar, the moon seer, her voice barely more than a whisper. "The kola nuts do not lie. The gods warn us. The blood of the firstborn brings doom." Chief Igba scoffed, slamming a hand on the carved table. "Superstition. The child Osas is innocent. He is the son of the weaver and the carver, not a curse." "But the signs are clear," Iyar replied, her eyes shining with urgent power. "If the boy remains, the land will wither and the people will suffer." Osas listened from the shadows, clutching a small wooden bird he had carved earlier. He did not understand the words, but the fear in the adults' faces was like a dark cloud over the bright morning. That evening, as the village gathered around the fire, Osas sat close to his mother. "Mama, will I make the land angry?" Ehaim kissed his forehead. "No, my son. Sometimes the gods speak in riddles. We must listen carefully." But the next day, rumors swirled like the dry wind. The Oba had ordered a cleansing. A priest declared that the child Osas, and those who supported him, must leave the kingdom. The firstborn must be exiled, or the curse would consume them all. In their compound, hurried preparations began. Bags of food, woven mats, water gourds, the few belongings the families could carry. Neighbors avoided their gaze, children whispered behind cupped hands, and friends turned to strangers. On the morning of departure, Osas stood at the village's edge, the sun warming his back, the trees ahead dark and dense like a wall of whispers. Behind him, Onicha Uku stretched wide and familiar, his home, his world, now closing behind like a door. His mother held his hand tightly. "Remember, Osas, we carry more than food and cloth. We carry hope." He looked back once more, then stepped forward into the unknown forest, where the shadows waited to test their courage and faith. The morning air was thick with mist as the caravan of exiles stepped beneath the ancient canopy of the forest. The trees towered like silent giants, their leaves whispering secrets to the wind. A chorus of unseen birds called out, and somewhere nearby, the snap of a twig echoed like a warning. Osas walked beside his mother, clutching the small bundle of belongings he had managed to carry. His eyes darted nervously from shadow to shadow, the familiar sunlit fields of Onicha Uku replaced by dappled light and endless green. Behind them, the other families moved with quiet urgency, faces etched with fear and determination. Chief Igba led the way, spear in hand, his sharp gaze scanning the underbrush for dangers both seen and unseen. "This forest is old," said Iyar, the moon seer, her voice low and steady as she walked near Osas. "It has held secrets long before we were born. We must honor its rules or risk its wrath." Osas glanced up at her, sensing a power in her calm presence that even the warriors seemed to respect. "What kind of rules?" Iyar's eyes narrowed. "This land demands respect, offerings, and silence. The spirits watch everything." The group's progress was slow. Roots twisted like sleeping serpents beneath their feet, and the air grew heavy with the scent of earth and decay. Hunger gnawed at their bellies, and nights were filled with strange sounds that made the children cry. On the third day, a child fell ill. The fever came swiftly, burning red beneath the skin. The priests gathered, muttering prayers and offering sacrifices to the forest gods, but the sickness spread like wildfire. Fear turned to desperation. Some of the elders whispered of curses, of the land rejecting the exiles. A few families began to turn back, their loyalty to Onicha Uku stronger than their hope for a new home. One evening, as the fire crackled under a sky studded with stars, Osas sat apart, wrestling with the darkness in his heart. The journey was harder than he had imagined, and the faces around him showed cracks of doubt. His mother sat beside him, wrapping an arm around his shoulders. "You are stronger than you think, Osas. This journey will shape us all. But what if we never find a place to belong?" She looked toward the trees, their outlines blurred by the flickering firelight. "Then we create it." The next morning, the path grew steeper and the forest thicker. The sound of rushing water brought relief, a clear stream where they could drink and bathe. But even here, the forest's watchful eyes seemed to follow. As they prepared to move on, Iyar called for a halt. She knelt beside the water, gathering soil in her hands. "We must offer a gift." Confused, the warriors watched as she poured water and soil onto the ground, chanting softly. The group fell silent, the only sound the gentle ripple of the stream. "That is the way of the forest," Er explained. "We ask for its blessing." Days turned into weeks. The exiles fought off wild beasts, braved storms, and faced moments when despair threatened to break their spirits. Yet through it all, Osas felt a growing strength inside him, a connection to this new land that he could not explain. One night, as the fire's glow dimmed, a strange figure appeared at the edge of the camp, a woman draped in leaves, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. She spoke no words, but her presence sent a ripple of awe through the group. Er approached her with reverence. "She is the spirit of the forest," Er said. "We are not alone." Osas watched the woman disappear into the shadows and felt a thrill of hope and fear intertwining in his chest. The journey was far from over, but something ancient and powerful was beginning to awaken, in the forest, in the people, and in Osas himself. The caravan emerged from the dense forest as the morning sun stretched its fingers over the horizon. Before them lay a wide valley shrouded in a gentle mist that clung to the grass like a whisper. The air was cool, scented with earth and blooming flowers. The sound of a river running softly in the distance invited them forward. Osas stood at the edge of the clearing, his heart pounding. The valley felt alive, as if it breathed and watched. The families gathered, eyes wide with hope and exhaustion. Er stepped forward, her gaze sweeping the land. "This place answers to the old songs," she said softly. "The spirits are near. This is where we will build." The people set to work. Men cleared brush, women planted seeds, children chased each other beneath towering trees. Osas helped his father carve wooden stakes while his mother wove baskets from reeds found near the riverbank. But the valley was not without its challenges. Strange sounds echoed at night, the mournful calls of unseen creatures, the rustling of leaves that never seemed to rest. Some whispered that the land was sacred and warned against disturbing the balance. One afternoon, as Osas ventured near the river, he noticed a peculiar stone half buried in the mud. It was smooth, shaped like a crescent moon, and pulsed faintly beneath his fingers. He pocketed it, feeling a warmth spread through his palm. That evening, under the flickering firelight, Osas showed the stone to Er. She examined it closely, her eyes growing wide. "This is a relic of the ancestors," she said. "A sign that the land accepts us, but also a warning. We must tread carefully." Days turned into weeks. The village began to take shape. Huts of woven branches, fields planted with yams and millet, paths cleared for the coming rains. Yet, beneath the progress, a tension simmered. Some elders doubted the wisdom of settling so close to the spirits. "Too many signs," muttered Chief Igbo one evening. "The forest gives, but it also takes." Osas felt the weight of their fears, but also a strange joy. In this valley, he could breathe freely. He dreamed of building a life here, one that honored both the old kingdom and the new land. One night, as the mist rolled in thick and cold, Osas heard a voice calling his name. Following the sound, he found Ereoma, a girl from one of the other families, standing by the riverbank. Her eyes shone like stars. "The forest speaks through dreams," she said. "It has chosen you." Osas looked at her, puzzled but drawn to her calm certainty. "Chosen me? For what?" "To be the bridge between the old and the new. The one who will lead us beyond the shadows." As the mist curled around them like a living thing, Osas felt the first stirrings of a destiny that would bind him to this valley, and to a future none could yet imagine. The seasons shifted quietly over the valley, painting the land with rain and sun, growth and decay. The village of the exiles from Onicha Uku had grown from scattered huts into a community bound by sweat, faith, and the promise of a new beginning. Yet beneath the surface, a quiet tension simmered, between the old ways and the new land that demanded respect, between hope and fear, and between two souls whose destinies were intertwined like the roots beneath their feet. Osas stood at the edge of the river, watching the water flow over smooth stones and fallen leaves. The river's song was a constant companion, a melody both soothing and wild. Today, however, his thoughts were tangled with the words of Iyar, the moon seer, who had spoken of a bond, a sacred connection that would define his future. "Osas," she had said in a voice as soft as the mist that hugged the valley each dawn, "the forest has marked you. You carry a fire within, a spark from the old world and the new. But to truly lead, you must understand the spirit that walks beside you." He had not understood then. But now, as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows over the valley, he felt a stirring in his chest, a restless yearning. From the thicket emerged Ereoma. Her presence was as natural as the wind that whispered through the trees. She moved with grace, her dark eyes shining with a quiet fire. She was unlike anyone Osas had ever met, fierce yet gentle, mysterious yet familiar. The village whispered that she was touched by the spirits of the forest, a child born not only of the exile families but also of the land itself. "Osas," she said, her voice carrying the soft strength of the river's flow, "come with me." He hesitated only a moment before following her into the deepening woods, where the canopy closed overhead, and the light was dappled and green. They walked in silence, the sounds of the village fading behind them. They reached a clearing where ancient stones stood in a circle, covered in moss and lichen. The air was cool and fragrant with earth and blossoms. Ereoma knelt by one of the stones and placed her hands on the ground. "This is the heart of the forest," she said. "The spirits gather here. You must listen." Osas knelt beside her, closing his eyes. At first, there was only the steady rhythm of his breath and the distant call of birds. Then slowly, a warmth spread through his body, a pulse steady and strong, like the beating of a great heart beneath the soil. "The forest speaks," Ereoma whispered. "It chooses those who can hear." Days passed, and Osas found himself drawn to Ereoma and the sacred clearing. The elders noticed the change in him, the way his gaze grew distant, as if touched by visions. Some feared what this meant. Others saw a glimmer of hope. One night, during a village gathering around the fire, Iyar told the story of the bride of the forest, a spirit who comes to those marked by fate, binding their lives to the land and its future. "You are not alone, Osas," she said. "Ereoma is your bridge, your guide, and your challenge." Osas and Ereoma's bond deepened, becoming a dance of light and shadow, strength and vulnerability. Their union was not just of flesh, but of spirit, a promise that would bind the exile families to this new home and seal their destiny. Yet, with this bond came resistance. Some elders, led by Chief Igba, saw the forest's demands as dangerous, fearing the loss of tradition and control. "There is power in fear," Chief Igba said in a tense council meeting. "But power without wisdom is destruction." Tensions grew, and the village stood on the edge of division. One evening, Osas and Ereoma stood at the clearing's edge, the moon a silver guardian overhead. "The forest will test us," Ereoma said softly. "But together we will be stronger." Osas nodded, feeling the weight of his ancestors and the promise of the future settling over him like a cloak. As the wind stirred the leaves, Osas knew their journey was far from over. But in Ereoma's eyes, he saw the hope that would carry them through the shadow. Villagers gathered in the clearing beneath the Iroko tree, their sacred meeting place. The air was thick with tension, whispers rippling like a restless wind through the crowd. On one side stood Osas and his followers, young and hopeful, eyes bright with the fire of new beginnings. On the other, the elders, stern and weathered, led by Chief Igba, faces hardened by years of tradition and fear. The elders' voices rose, speaking of danger and the old ways. Chief Igba's booming voice cut through the murmurs. "We did not survive the exile to lose ourselves in the whispers of the forest. This land tests us, yes, but it does not own us. The spirits may watch, but it is the wisdom of our ancestors that guides us." Osas stepped forward, his heart pounding. "Chief Igba, we honor the ancestors, but we cannot ignore the signs. The forest is alive, and it calls to us in ways we must listen to, not fight against." A sharp murmur ran through the crowd. "We are not children to be led by dreams and shadows," snapped one elder. "The forest's gift is a curse that will destroy us if we let it." Iyar, the moon seer, moved to Osas' side, her voice calm but firm. "The old ways and the new are not enemies. They must live together, or we will lose everything." Chief Igba's eyes narrowed. "And who will lead this union? A boy marked by spirits? A girl born of the forest? No. Leadership comes from blood, from tradition, from strength." Osas felt the sting of the words but held his ground. "Leadership comes from courage and vision. The village must change, or it will perish." The crowd divided, some shouting agreement, others echoing the elders' warnings. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the meeting broke into smaller groups, whispers of rebellion hanging heavy in the air. The nights grew restless. Fires burned brighter, voices louder. Osas and Ereoma walked together under the stars, the weight of the village's fate pressing on them. "We cannot let this divide destroy us," Osas said. But the elders fear losing control. They see the forest's power as a threat. Ereoma nodded, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. The forest is a test of faith of will. We must show them the way. But Chief Igba was gathering his own supporters, speaking in hushed tones beneath the cover of darkness. We must act before the forest claims the village, he said to a circle of elders. Osa's visions will lead us to ruin. A plan took shape, to challenge Osas publicly and prove that his path was dangerous, to reclaim the village's soul. Days later, during a gathering in the village square, Chief Igba confronted Osas before the people. You claim the spirits guide you, Igba said, voice dripping with scorn. But what proof do you have that this is not madness? That your bond with Ereoma is not a trick of the forest to weaken us? Osas met his gaze. The forest's proof is in our survival, in the growth of this village. The stone I found, the blessings Ereoma carries, these are signs. We cannot turn away. Igba laughed bitterly. Signs? Or delusions? The crowd's murmurs turned into a roar. Some sided with Igba, shouting that Osas must be banished, that Ereoma's influence was poison. Others defended Osas, calling for peace and unity. Suddenly, Iyar stepped forward. The spirits have spoken through Osas and Ereoma. Let us test their truth. She proposed a ritual, a trial by the forest, where Osas and Ereoma would venture into the sacred woods alone for 3 days and nights. If they returned, it would prove their bond was true. If not, the village would reject their claim. Reluctantly, both sides agreed. The morning of the trial arrived with heavy clouds and a biting wind. Osas and Ereoma prepared, faces solemn. As they entered the forest, the villagers gathered at the edge, holding their breath. The forest swallowed them. Inside the dense green, Osas and Ereoma faced the forest's trials. Wild animals, treacherous paths, and illusions that tested their resolve. They relied on each other, and the lessons of the ancestors whispered by Iyar's chants. At one point, Osas was caught in a snare, the vines tightening like cold hands. Ereoma's voice broke the silence, calming the forest with a song only it could understand. The vines loosened, and he was free. Their bond grew stronger with each challenge. On the third night, as the moon reached its peak, Osas had a vision, a great tree with roots that stretched across the valley, connecting the past and future. Ereoma stood beside it, her hands glowing with light. He awoke to find her watching him. We are the roots, she said softly. The village must grow from us. When they returned, the village waited with anxious eyes. Osas spoke first. The forest has not rejected us. It has shown us the path. Ereoma added, we are not enemies to the old ways but their continuation. The elders looked on, some moved, others still skeptical. Chief Igba stepped forward, face unreadable. Then slowly he nodded. Perhaps it is time to listen as well as remember, he said. But the path will be hard. Unity was fragile, but the village had survived the greatest test yet. As the fires burned low that night, Osas stood beside Ereoma and Iyar, gazing at the stars. The rebellion had been quelled, but the journey was far from over. The forest had marked them, the village had chosen its leaders, and a new chapter was beginning. One forged in fire, faith, and the unseen roots that bind them all. The morning sun painted the valley in hues of gold and amber as the village stirred awake, humming with a newfound energy. The fires that once threatened to consume the fragile unity had dwindled to glowing embers of hope, illuminating paths toward a future neither bound by the past nor lost in the unknown. Osas stood at the heart of the village, his gaze steady, eyes reflecting the dawn of a new era. The villagers gathered around the clearing, ready to rebuild, not just their homes, but their lives. After the trials and divisions, a collective resolve had taken root, stronger than any forest vine or ancestral chain. Chief Igba, once a formidable adversary, now worked alongside Osas, the hard lines of tradition softening into the careful contours of cooperation. Our strength lies in balance, Igba admitted during a council meeting, voice low but sincere. Between what we were and what we can become. The sound of hammers and laughter filled the air as walls rose and fields were planted anew. Ereoma moved among the people with quiet grace, a living symbol of the forest's blessing and the village's future. Her bond with Osas had become a beacon of hope, a testament to what could grow when old wounds healed. But peace was a fragile thing in the Valley of Mist. One evening, as twilight deepened, a scout returned with urgent news. A band of outsiders had been spotted near the river's edge, their faces unknown and their intentions unclear. Osas convened the council. Our home is no longer hidden, he said. We must prepare, not just to defend, but to welcome, if peace is possible. The village braced for the unknown, hearts pounding with the same mix of fear and courage that had carried their ancestors through exile. As the outsiders approached, wary eyes met in the shadow of the Iroko tree. Tensions ran high, but Osas stepped forward, extending a hand of friendship. The strangers were traders from a distant land, bringing goods and stories, but also warnings of dangers that lurked beyond the forest, threats of conquest and exploitation. The village faced a new challenge, to guard their freedom while embracing change. Amid this, Osas found solace in Ereoma's presence. Their nights were spent beneath the stars, sharing dreams and fears, their spirits intertwined with the pulse of the valley. Yet, whispers of dissent lingered. Some elders questioned Osas' openness to outsiders, fearing a loss of identity. Others feared the growing power of Ereoma, whose connection to the forest seemed to deepen with every passing moon. One night, as Osas meditated by the river, Iyar appeared, her eyes shining with urgency. "The forest speaks again," she said. "A choice approaches, between growth and sacrifice." Osas knew the path ahead would test them all. But with Ereoma beside him and the village united, he felt ready to face whatever dawn awaited. The peaceful rhythm of the valley was shattered by the distant thunder of unfamiliar voices and the glint of foreign weapons under the midday sun. The outsiders had returned, not as traders but as invaders, hungry for the rich lands beyond the trees and eager to impose their rule. Osas stood at the forefront of the village, his heart heavy but unyielding. The lessons of exile and the bonds forged in the valley had prepared him for this moment. Beside him, Ereoma's steady gaze mirrored his determination. "Today we fight not just for land," Osas declared to the gathered villagers, "but for the soul of our people, free-born and chosen alike." The battle was fierce. The villagers, though fewer in number, knew the forest as an ally, using the dense undergrowth and hidden paths to their advantage. Ereoma's connection to the forest proved invaluable, sensing danger and guiding their movements. Yet, the invaders' weapons and numbers pressed hard against their defenses. Blood stained the earth, and cries of pain echoed beneath the ancient trees. In the heat of conflict, alliances were tested. Some villagers, fearful and uncertain, questioned Osas' leadership, while others rallied with unwavering loyalty. At a crucial moment, Chief Igba, wounded but unbowed, stood with Osas. "We fight as one, or we fall divided." Their unity turned the tide, forcing the invaders to retreat, but not without scars, physical and spiritual, that would linger. In the aftermath, the village mourned and healed, but Osas knew this was only the beginning. The shadows beyond the forest still loomed, and the path ahead demanded wisdom, strength, and sacrifice. Of earth and new beginnings, mingled with the faint smoke from morning fires. Children's laughter wove through the stillness, a melody of hope and continuity. It was in this fragile peace that Osas stood at the edge of the clearing, gazing over the village he had helped to build. A home born from exile, struggle, and unyielding faith. Years had passed since the days of uncertainty and rebellion, since the trials by forest and fire had shaped the destiny of the people. The village had grown, rooted firmly in the soil and spirit of the land. Yet, with growth came new challenges, questions of identity, the weight of leadership, and the delicate balance between tradition and change. Osas felt the weight of these burdens, but also the strength of the legacy entrusted to him. Ereoma approached quietly, her presence a soothing balm to the restless thoughts that stirred within him. "Are you ready?" she asked softly. He turned to her, eyes reflecting the dawn. "I am. It is time." The gathering at the clearing was unlike any before. Elders, warriors, women, and children, the faces of the village united under the great Iroko tree. The air hummed with anticipation and respect. Today, Osas would share the story of their journey, the exile, the struggle, the triumph, and cast their vision forward for generations to come. Stepping forward, Osas began. "Our story is one of fire and forest, of tears and triumph. We were cast from the land of our birth, but not broken. In this place, unknown and wild, we planted our roots, grew stronger, and forged a new home. We are not defined by the chains of our past, but by the courage to break them." A murmur of agreement rose from the crowd. Some called us slaves, some free-born. But we are more than those words. We are the children of the earth, the spirit of the forest, and the hope of tomorrow. He paused, letting the words sink in. We honor our ancestors and the forest spirits that guided us. But we also embrace the change that comes with time. Our unity is our strength. Our diversity, our legacy. Iyar stepped forward next, her voice carrying the wisdom of the ages. The forest spoke through Osas and Ereoma, showing us the path from exile to home. It is a path that continues, one we must walk together, with respect for the past and courage for the future. Chief Igba, seated among the elders, nodded solemnly. We have learned that leadership is not about holding power, but about serving the people and the land. Osas has shown us that. The ceremony ended with a feast, music, and dancing beneath the stars. The villagers celebrated not just survival, but life, a life shaped by hardship and healed by hope. But even as the village rejoiced, Osas and Ereoma knew their work was not done. The outside world still watched, its shadows creeping closer. To protect their home, to preserve their freedom, the people of Omodiale would need to continue their journey, together. And so, as the night deepened, Osas looked to the stars and spoke softly. Our story will be told by those who come after us. Let it be one of courage, unity, and love. Ereoma took his hand, her smile a promise. Together, we are the roots that will hold this land forever. Moral lesson: unity, courage, and the power of change. The story of Osas and the founding of the Omodiale Kingdom teaches us profound lessons about the strength of unity, the courage to embrace change, and the importance of honoring both tradition and progress. It is a tale that echoes across time and culture, reminding us that identity is not defined by circumstances imposed upon us, but by the choices we make to rise above them. First and foremost, the story underscores the power of unity in the face of adversity. When Osas and his people were exiled from their original homeland, they faced immense challenges: hostile environments, internal divisions, and threats both seen and unseen. Yet, it was their ability to come together, to listen to one another, and to find common purpose that allowed them to survive and thrive. The divisions between free-born and slaves, between elders and youth, threatened to tear them apart, but through dialogue, respect, and compromise, they forged a community stronger than the sum of its parts. This teaches us that unity does not mean uniformity. Rather, it is the conscious choice to embrace diversity, to respect different experiences and perspectives, and to work collaboratively for the common good. The story also emphasizes the importance of courage. Not just physical bravery, but the courage to envision a different future. Osas' leadership was marked not by force alone, but by a willingness to listen to the forest, to embrace new ideas, and to challenge old fears. His journey shows that change is often frightening, especially when it threatens deeply held traditions and familiar ways of life. Yet, progress depends on those who dare to step into the unknown, who understand that survival requires adaptation. This courage inspires us to face our own uncertainties and to lead with vision and heart. Moreover, the story illustrates the delicate balance between honoring tradition and welcoming change. The elders' rebellion against Osas' new ways was rooted in a desire to preserve identity and values handed down from ancestors. Their concerns were valid, reminding us that progress should never come at the cost of forgetting where we come from. But Osas and Ereoma's journey showed that tradition and innovation are not enemies. They are partners in building a resilient community. This balance teaches us to cherish our roots while being open to growth, recognizing that every generation shapes its future by weaving the wisdom of the past with the promise of new possibilities. Finally, the narrative highlights the invisible chains that bind and the freedom that comes from breaking them. Whether physical or mental, chains of discrimination, fear, and prejudice can limit people's lives and relationships. The struggle of free-born and slaves, of inclusion and exclusion, reflects a universal truth. Freedom is not merely the absence of shackles, but the presence of acceptance, dignity, and opportunity for all. The story invites us to examine the unseen chains in our own societies, barriers of social status, bias, or stigma, and to work toward a world where every person can belong fully and freely. In conclusion, the story of Osas and Omodiale is a timeless lesson in resilience, leadership, and humanity. It encourages us to build communities grounded in unity, to have the courage to embrace change without forsaking tradition, and to strive for freedom that uplifts every soul. Through these principles, we find hope and strength to overcome any exile, whether of land, heart, or spirit, and to create legacies that endure. If you enjoy our videos, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel to stay updated on our upcoming stories. Thank you.